Video is brought to you by crippling debt. Make sure to go to college if you want to have crippling debt and anxiety for the future.
Welcome to the Saorsa Podcast. This is episode 5. Today on the show, I have Mr. Brady Wade, Mr. Money Magic himself.
Hello, everyone.
Brady, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Brady Wade. I'm just a financial economics student. There's no credibility coming from this episode. Just my thoughts, my rambles, things like that. Just a guy from Sacramento, California, going to Chico State, about to graduate. I am doing a lot, like I run a podcast and a YouTube channel. We're going to get into a lot of interesting topics, I think, today. Stick around. This podcast is going to be a good one.
The retention, the king.
Yeah. Get the retention time up, you guys. Help us out.
So let's just sort of start out. You mentioned you run your own podcast. We'll plug it a little more at the end, but what's that about? How did you get started?
It's called Money Magic Podcast. The interest comes from my internal passion of wanting to understand money more. A huge problem in modern America is people don't understand wealth management and their own finance management. We're not taught in school what we should do with a checking or savings account or how to invest for retirement. And the only resource people have to turn to is the internet. And there's a lot of misinformation, scams, financial guru type people, you know?
Yeah.
So it can be really hard and frustrating to navigate something you don't understand and not knowing if you're going to get the right information. So I started doing Money Magic just to learn and grow myself while also sharing my thoughts about certain topics like car markets or how to budget for the grocery store or, you know, how to spend a little less money when you're going out with friends. So I like to dive into topics that it's easy to understand for a lot of casual people, you know, while also not providing serious financial advice or anything like that. Because
None of this is serious financial advice.
It's not. I just released a video and the first comment was, "Is this financial advice?" And I was like, no, it's not. So yeah, I think it stems from my own curiosity, really.
I think with going about this podcast and creating sort of some other content on my channel, I really like the idea because I've always followed educational YouTubers. I think there's a lot of value in learning something while teaching it. If you teach something, you know it. By having an outlet that's specifically learning and teaching at the same time, not only improves your ability to understand it and comprehend it and truly get a deep understanding of it, but it also has the ability to help other people.
It's almost like a form of self-reflection on what you know.
Yeah.
Reiterating that thought to yourself when you're talking about it or when you're teaching somebody about it. Because, yeah, like you said, you do learn about it at the same time as you're teaching it. I try to drive home the point that, listen, I don't know everything, but what I do know and thoughts that I have picked up along my journey, I'm just going to share those and see if it provides any value to somebody. And most of the time, it does. You know, still small time, nothing big or anything, but I do have a small audience that actually watches my stuff.
Yeah, cool. We've talked before. You've had the privilege and opportunity to travel around the world a lot.
Yeah, huge privilege, by the way.
Where have you visited? How were those experiences? And what was your big takeaway?
So it started with specially selected school art trip because I went to an art charter school. It was a very special high school focused on arts rather than sports.
Awesome.
So I was involved in film, acting, musical theater, things like that. And they had a cultural exchange program called One Voice. And I was like, that's dope. I want to do this. At first, it was a little less of the wanting to learn about other cultures and more like, I want to travel. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So at first I signed up, I did my audition, and I got in with 12 other students from the high school, and we did a trip to China and learned all about Chinese culture, history. I even stayed with a host family over there and got to experience real life.
Yeah. And this was in high school.
Yeah, this was when I was 16, not even an adult yet, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
But that sort of ignited my passion for travel, and traveling is super a life-changing experience, and you learn so much about yourself and other people around you and the world. Break the shell that you're sort of, you know, molded in from birth.
Yeah, I mentioned this in the previous podcast when I was talking to James, and universities do the same thing. You're able to see a new perspective. You're able to learn something new. It forces you to question your reality in a way that allows you to grow and like just gain a deeper understanding of something. When I visited Scotland, which is where my dad's from,
That's how the podcast is named, right? It's a Freedom Podcast, technically.
Yeah, I haven't actually really talked about this with like the whole idea of the freedom thing. It's not like a, you know, U.S. patriotic thing. It's more just the idea that everyone should be able to do what they want with their time they have on Earth.
Nice.
And so let's talk to people who are doing things in their free time or talking about just spending this ability to control our own destiny in a way. So
learned a lot from a bunch of different cultures, and then I ended up studying abroad once I got to university, and that just opened the door. I traveled all over Europe. I wanted to travel in a way that was not typical. I didn't want to go to London. I didn't want to go to Paris. I wanted to go to the places that people didn't really check out a lot. A lot of Europe is still really cool. I went to places like Prague. I road tripped the southern Italian island of Sicily with some friends. ate at these random restaurants in towns that were basically deserted because it wasn't like tourist season. I did a random spontaneous trip to Morocco, and that was probably one of the more eye-opening experiences, and was honestly one of my favorite trips because I got a lot out of it. It tested my character as a person, and it tested my own cultural narrative. It tested my understanding of how people's cultures work and how to adapt myself to understand them and to act better.
Just be more respectful and
flexible. And sort of also break down these barriers that you put up for yourself and how you perceive culture without actually being in that place. So, actually meeting real Moroccan people versus what you hear on mainstream media. Normally, what do you just hear on mainstream media? You hear like Arab world and nothing else. But in reality, there's so many little subgroups and subcultures. We even did a little tour in the mountainous region, the Atlas Mountains near Marrakesh, and we stumbled across a mix of Arab and Jewish villages called Berber.
Interesting.
The Berber tribe. It was super cool meeting them. They were all so nice and friendly, and I didn't expect such a positive experience going into it. I was more like, here we go. Let's see how they perceive me, a rich Westerner American, right?
Yeah.
So.
Out of curiosity, did that experience traveling and viewing places outside the U.S., did that inspire you to study economics? Is that where that came from, or why did you choose to do a degree in economics?
No, it certainly made me more interested in international economics and comparisons between countries and how standards of livings are and financial institutions and how important that is. There's definitely that aspect, but the reason I got into economics was because, one, I had an interest in financial literacy and money. I wanted to understand money a little more. Two, I was also interested in the political landscape. I was sort of attuned to pay attention to that, and economics had a little bit of that as well, especially macroeconomics and issues talked about within macroeconomics, and also analyzing data. I would notice that I would be looking up things on Reddit related to economics and be like, hold on a second, I'm looking up all this stuff about economics, I'm not even studying it. I decided, look, it's pretty lucrative, it's pretty versatile, you can basically do anything, you can go into business, you can go into finance, it covers a broad range, especially with just a bachelor's. So
yeah, I heard that economics is a framework for understanding and a framework for decision making. Only PhD level stuff is pure economics. The value of only having an understanding of economics really only serves you as an academic, but combining it with other skills like production or resource management, it's a framework for pursuing those things and being more successful in other fields.
If it's taught me one thing, it's taught me to think in a certain way in regards to doing other skill sets or other aspects of my life.
Yeah. As an economics student, and obviously, like you said at the beginning, still studying it. We're not PhD economists. We're not even...
About to get my bachelor's, which means almost nothing nowadays.
Obviously, you mentioned you follow the markets. What are some worrying trends on an economic scale that you pay attention to?
There's always plenty of worries, and there's
That's what economists do, right?
Oh, yeah, they just worry constantly. It's the dismal science, No getting around that. But some worrying trends, a lot of people are throwing out PE ratios are high, assets are overvalued, housing market's overvalued. Everyone's talking about bubbles. You can't really predict when a bubble pops. There's even debate if bubbles actually exist. Some worrying trends I see, and this is a sign for many recessive periods, is uneducated people getting caught up in hype.
Building castles in the clouds.
I like to compare the dot-com boom of the late 90s to 2001 and compare it to sort of what we have now, which is a huge crypto boom, a huge NFT. I'm a little worried that's going to be overvalued and overhyped to the point where it all crashes. Just like tech stocks in 2001. Consumers started using the internet more and more. The mainstream started using the internet, and people said, hold on, I can make a business out of this. Yeah. I can make online businesses. This is when like Amazon was founded, for example. An important thing to note is even though I may think that there's a crash coming for NFTs or there's a crash coming for crypto, that doesn't mean that there's not a future for that stuff.
Sure.
It's just like the internet. It was overhyped and overinflated. It led to a huge crash in 2001, but are there tech companies still around today? Yes. In fact, they are leading the S&P 500.
It's like the dot-com boom. The reason it's called dot-com is because people were rushing to get domains, and they overvalue domains because it's an unlimited, limited landscape in that there are essentially an endless number of domains. But by having pets.com or woof.com,
right, you get these generic names, and it's like you
and
search
it's like that must be super valuable because one day people are going to just look up pets.com and they'll find yours naturally. Things got sort of partially overvalued for that. And do you see any parallels between that situation and what we're seeing with NFTs?
Yeah, definitely. When people think that owning their original code of a JPEG or picture, that
change a pixel.
Owning a certain set of pixels and that copy to them matters, and people are going to want that one day because you have the one Bored Ape. Like I said, I just think that's kind of silly and overhyped. And just like the .com bubble, there has to be some sort of long-term value for NFTs and the purpose of NFTs. And right now, the purpose is buy this picture so that I could sell this picture.
Yeah.
Where does that leave you, right?
Yeah, it's purely speculative.
Basically, you don't want to be the last person holding that NFT or that digital picture.
One of the books I would really recommend to anybody trying to understand finance and economics is called The Random Walk Down Wall Street. And one of the things they talk about is speculation is great as long as you're not the last one holding the bag.
Right, like I remember I just wanted to dip my toes in. I wanted to dip my toes into crypto. So I just threw $200 at Bitcoin. It's booming. This is one of the periods where it was in that 50,000 range. Yeah. I'll throw $200 in. It's probably not a good idea.
Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't.
After a couple days, I took it out. I made a $20 profit. Cool. I got a 10% return. A week later, it crashes down to 32K. If you ignore the hype and you're in it for the long term and you just focus on the overall market in general, you're going to be just fine. Don't give in to the get rich quick schemes or anything like that. The S&P 500 in general beat most hedge funds last year. Did you hear about that at all?
The S&P 500 is a little unique because it's just marketed better than any other group of stocks. They say the S&P 500 is the benchmark. It's safe to invest in benchmarks. There might be some overvaluation of those stocks because they are the default. Mm-hmm. Because if you're just trying to save up, get to retirement, put your money into the stock market, this is well enough diversified, it's 500 top companies. I think in the long run it is, but in the short run it probably is overvalued.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree.
I like to park my money, so whenever I'm investing, I don't care to make money off of a day-to-day return. I care, is this company growing in 10 years or 20 years or when I retire? Is it going to be continuously growing, continuously producing income? And if it is, then it's a sound investment.
Yeah, so you go for it. Sounds like classic.
And it's not financial advice.
Not financial advice, but good idea. Sound like Warren Buffett right now.
I know you've been working through college. When did you first get the job you're currently working at?
I work at Masson and Isom Technology Consulting. It's an IT consulting company here in town. It was a very, very stressful story of how I started that position. I went to the career fair after I studied abroad. I was like inspired. I saw the world. I learned a lot of things, and I wanted to come back and put myself out there, get an internship early on. I was a second semester sophomore. Let me get into the world. Let me jump in. I go to the career fair. I'm looking around and visiting tables, and this guy who's my coworker now calls me over and he says, "Hey, are you interested in technology?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess I kind of am." And they had a business development internship opened up that was paid, which was important.
I'm not going to do something.
I'm not really a fan of working for free. I want to pay off my school, and I want to be financially not stressed out when I'm done with schools. I wanted a paid internship.
The only jobs that you should work for free internship-wise is in the nonprofit sector.
That's an interesting thought.
Because
it's like volunteer work, but you're gaining experience.
It's volunteer work, but it's professional volunteer work. Nonprofits are, in many ways, businesses with a different model. Sure, maybe it's an unpaid internship, and if you could afford to do that, it's a great experience because it's the same experience and generally it's fulfilling. So
yeah,
if somebody's making money from the work you're doing, though, you should be getting paid under all circumstances.
I think it'll become more and more common for internships to be paid over time.
I think it is.
Especially as younger generations, they sort of understand that a little more. Once millennials really become the business leaders of the world, past Gen X, they have a real understanding based on how they grew up and how they entered the job market. I have the optimistic approach where I think they'll show mercy on the younger generations. But who knows? Maybe not. Maybe as they gain experience, they'll be more protective of status.
I also think people just recognize the value of their time more. Because of this labor market with so many positions opening, you kind of have to pay people because they have opportunities to get paid elsewhere. I wouldn't suggest anyone work an unpaid internship. It's just
unless it's some
hold value in your time.
Unless it's really going to long term be a good investment for you. Maybe it's an unpaid internship at your dream firm that you want to work at. Then bust your butt for a year and then you'll have that position that you want at that firm. Then I guess you can take that cut. It's all about
long term planning.
Yeah, basically it's the bigger picture. But don't get screwed over. And if that's the only thing available to you, I guess take it as long as it propels what you want to do. But I took that job, dropped my resume, said, "Nice to see you." I didn't even follow up. I got a call.
He did the work.
Yeah, you should probably follow up to all your applications that you send out. But I got a call, had a very spontaneous phone interview, and they called me in for an in-person interview. I get the job, world shuts down.
Okay, so this is March 2020.
This is literally like March 12th, right before the world crashes, right before the financial markets.
Who knows
crash.
what happened?
Who knows?
Hard to say.
It was
everything blew up. Who knows?
It was a day-to-day thing.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the position of my boss and all of the partners there. I didn't know like kind of situation I was in. Every other place that I applied to called my cell phone and said, we're sorry, we're not accepting internships this summer due to the situation. Yeah. And I was like,
I had that too. At the time I was applying for a pathway to become a financial advisor during college.
Yeah.
So they would pay, and they would also pay for your education, sponsor you through. And it was like a local group, so it's not like a big like Northwestern Mutual.
I applied to a financial advising firm too.
Yeah. But they called me back and they said, hey, you are our top pick, but we have to manage all these relationships and just the world's shutting down. So sorry.
Yeah.
So I was like, shoot.
I got lucky. They said, don't worry, we're still going to keep you on. We're just going fully remote as a business while this pandemic takes over.
Well, and they're doing IT tech, so they probably got a lot of work because of the pandemic.
Yeah, a lot of the projects that we do can be done remotely. There's often choice between remote or in-person projects, on-site projects. We've been fine ever since. In fact, we are still remote to this day because of construction, ironically. But actually now with the new wave, they're sort of reconsidering. We'll see. I have no clue what's going on. All I know is that I have school and I have that part-time and I'm juggling both. And I'm super fortunate to have that job remotely. Otherwise, I'd have way few hours and who knows if I'd still be working there if it wasn't remote. If you're liking this video so far, make sure to leave a comment, like, and subscribe.
I think most of our technology in the past 20 years has been driven through increased information and increased access to information from all levels. And I'm not just saying I have the ability to pull out my phone right now and learn about an emperor's life from the 4th century. I'm talking about the amount of data that we have on people. Like, I mean, in economics, we do econometrics, which is taking a massive data set and trying to find the slope of a line that basically says, if this, then that. Just thinking about how much data we have allows us to hold constant for all those variables. That's basically a lot of what's driving the current economy, because one of the really basic things in economics that we learn about is price discrimination. And this idea that there's a slope to the demand curve. Some people are willing to pay a lot, some people are willing to pay a little. And with online marketing, you can optimize and say, I'm going to sell this for $50. The average person isn't going to buy that for $50. The average person thinks it's worth $25 and they're happy to pay that. But if you can market to the people who think it's worth $50, or better yet, convince them that it is, then with enough data and understanding of who that person is, you can optimize and hunt down that customer.
Yeah,
and they do it.
It's been so much easier for companies to do that with selling information and selling data. It's only recently that has seen some resistance, especially with the iOS 15 update. You used to have social media companies like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. These companies would know your information and they would know your interest based on your search results and how long you look at something. Your Explore pages are specifically designed to what your behavior is, basically, what you've been looking at. But recently, the iOS 15 update came out that forces companies to ask you permission to be tracked, basically, for your data to be tracked.
What's really interesting about that is it doesn't feel right that it says, ask them not to track me. And then it also comes up multiple times. So why do I have to continuously ask this app not to track me? And all I'm doing is asking them to. It's not like yes or no. It's, can we track you? Yes, or maybe not.
I will say though, there's
probably some legal stuff around there, but
I don't know the specifics legal wise, but I do know that it has caused those companies and their marketing teams to suffer. They've lost millions of dollars in opportunity costs.
Google's core product is acquiring that data.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of value in that data, but somewhat to a scary extent. Because if you can understand exactly how people think, which you can from what do you look up, what are you looking at, what are you doing, what are you following, you can understand generally what somebody's interests are, how people's day goes. You can understand a lot about them. And in the same way a sociopath can manipulate people, these companies can use advertising to manipulate our psyche because they understand us so well. That's a little scary because it's like being in a toxic relationship. If somebody understands you, they can exploit your weaknesses and they can exploit your interests and all that. And that's what we're doing by being on the internet.
And you mentioned one person like a sociopath. Now imagine an entire company that uses algorithms and calculations to perfectly get and understand what kind of person you are. Watch Social Dilemma. I'm going to give a shout out to that documentary on Netflix. Makes me think a lot more. I'm going to be honest and say that I still use a lot of social media.
I do too. It's hard not to. I mean, the world is designed in a manner where we sort of have to be a part of this community and being a part of society, or, trying to start a business.
I will say there are some morally good things that have come out of technology recently, protecting the consumer. For example, like that Apple update, sure, maybe it doesn't fix everything, but it is something. It's another barrier to help us out as consumers. I will say though, in defense of of a lot of these companies and their marketing teams. I will say that there's never been a better point in time where I've actually liked the advertisements I'm receiving. When I'm scrolling on Instagram, for example, I get advertisements that's actually based on my interest.
I don't want to be a pessimist. I actually think technology is overall quite good, but the fact that they can get you to like seeing a product that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily know about is sort
Makes
of...
you want it even though you don't need it.
Yeah.
But
I'm very intentional where I generally don't purchase a non-consumable unless it's been 6 or 7 months that I've wanted it. Like this watch, it took me 2 years to finally purchase it. It's
kind of like treating it like a responsible tattoo.
Yeah.
Where it's like you got to think about it for a while.
Yeah. I'm somewhat of a minimalist in that, like, I don't generally believe it's good to have a bunch of stuff you don't need or use. And so I'm just very careful about my purchases.
It's good.
And I'm also broke. So
I was just hyper frugal a couple of years ago. In fact, I even went like thousands under budget when I went abroad because I was so worried about spending way too much money. I definitely like to think about my purchases. I'm very sensitive towards it. What do you think about Dave Ramsey's whole spiel about credit cards and how that makes you want to spend more money?
I was originally really big into Dave Ramsey. That's how I got interested in money and finance.
He's like a good starter, like a starting point.
It's good to start financially at a conservative level because when you want to be very careful, then you can come in with a level of skepticism. Credit cards are a tool. Over past like 4 years, I've never paid a penny of interest and I've made money from the banks.
If get those sign-on bonuses,
the sign-on bonuses,
credit score building, all of that stuff.
I get 3% cash back whenever I go to a restaurant. Perfect. And so when I'm with my friends, I trust them so that I know they'll pay me back. I'll just pay and I get 3% back from the bank.
Man.
And it's a tool.
I'm not letting you do that this time. My turn for cash back.
Hey, that's welcome. It's just going in, understanding that these instruments are tools and they're not inherently evil.
Yeah.
But they can be misused. Debt can be used responsibly. All it is borrowing from the future. If you borrow from the future to build something today that will create for the future.
Sure, like not paying back my student loans yet because they're at 0% interest.
Yeah, why bother?
Thanks, Biden. I think Dave Ramsey's show is suited for a particular crowd. Let's get out of debt. We got to debt snowball this thing to the ground. Yeah. You need to sell your car, eat rice and beans for 3 months. Yeah. That's it. Sell your house and live in a tent to get out of debt.
For somebody who doesn't have an inherent understanding of money or has an unhealthy relationship with money.
They have a salary and they're trying to get by. And they need somebody to tell them how to do something. Because they need it cut and dry, basic.
They don't teach it in school. Learning from Dave Ramsey when I was 16, getting my first job, set me up so well moving into college. That just
boils my blood that we don't teach that kind of things as a society. I dare to say this. I dare to say that why am I learning economics in high school? I think a financial literacy course would be better suited for high school students than a supply and demand course.
But if you think about it, having an understanding of financial literacy, you can't trick people into having to work until they're 70. If people aren't in debt, then why would they work? If people know how to save and follow the FIRE movement and retire when they're 30, how are we going to make the economy flow?
Yeah, it's just
so teaching financial literacy.
It's just unfortunate that you could make the economy boom more by making other people suffer. By not having an understanding.
The kings and the peasants. There is pretty much no way to live a lavish lifestyle without having other people work for you.
We have not left the feudal landscape, ladies and gentlemen. We are still in a feudal system.
No, I wouldn't go that far, but I mean, if everybody's benefiting, it's fine. If nobody is suffering on the other side, it's fine. As long as the person on the other side is not at bare sustenance, if they're able to build up savings, if they're able to build up capital, it's not necessarily inherently bad. But when we live in a society where people are paid exactly what it takes to live and not paid enough to invest in their future, then we're living in a society with a modern version of slavery.
Well, here's what's optimistic about it, and I'll bring an optimistic point to this whole thing and about how you can get trapped in any system, I think, where there is power and different levels of status. The information is out there. Everything is on the internet for free. You just have to find it. And you just have to be interested enough to learn it. And that sort of circles back to why I started the podcast and share my thoughts in the first place. I would love for ordinary people to just find it somewhat useful or take a little nugget of knowledge out of that. Oh. Like maybe don't buy a used car right now.
It's not a good market.
Not a good market. But some people don't even know that. And it's hard to think that some people don't know that, but it's true.
So out of curiosity, what's next for Brady Wade? We're both graduating in 5 months. what's sort of the outlook, or at least your goals, and then what other projects are you working on?
My goals right now, I'm working a lot on my personal development, my personal life. Right now, I'm actually physically training for a Spartan race, which is pretty cool. That's coming up right before graduation.
And what's a Spartan race for those who don't know?
I'm doing a Spartan Beast race, and it's basically like a half marathon, except there's 30 obstacles in between. So think kind of like American Ninja Warrior, where there's like giant walls, like long extended monkey bar obstacles. There's even a fire jump at the end of it. Like you jump through a fire and then cross the finish line, which is pretty sweet. I'm just training my butt off like 5 days a week to do that. As far as everything else goes, I'm still exploring careers. I know eventually, I don't know how long down the road, but I will own my own business. I will be in control of my own product or service, whatever that is. I don't know yet. Right now, I'm getting back into content creation. I've had activity on my YouTube channel over the years, but right now I'm sort of reviving that with the video version of the Money Magic podcast. So just doing that on all platforms, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google.
Link in the description.
Links wherever he puts it. I don't know.
We'll see if I put them. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, but then also posting to the Brady Wade YouTube channel, and it's cool to see old subscribers actually come back and be like, "Whoa, you're posting again." So I was like, "Wow."
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. How did you build up that initial audience?
It happened over the course of several phases of YouTube where I would post and then I'd stop and post again. I got a huge boom in 2019 because I started collabing with a girl from high school, and she had about 90,000 subscribers.
Oh, wow.
And she did like a little prank video on me where she admitted that she had a crush on me. That ended up being her best video, and it got over 1 million views.
Oh, rad.
Then it was an invite to me being featured on her channel, and we did a video together. And then those videos started doing really well, so she would invite me back. I ended up starting to upload on my channel, doing my own sort of little vlog version. Yeah, it just sort of trickled over a little bit. Also, some people that organically found the channel over time, just a lot of consistent effort over the months, I'd say. And then some people from my gaming channel way back in like 2014.
Yeah, back in the good old days.
When you could monetize without any restriction.
Yeah, I remember I made probably around $1.25.
Yeah.
When I used to make some gaming videos. Yeah.
Nice.
I used to play a lot of Counter-Strike. That was probably my first step into this idea of working hard at something that you're passionate about.
Trying to do those like montages or something?
Well, no, I wanted to be a pro gamer. So I played Counter-Strike.
Esports, Cloud9.
I was pretty good at like my prime, like not professional level, but pretty good. And so whenever I'd get like a clip that was like, whoa, I would just post like 15-20 seconds, and there was a couple that were like, hey, this is just like something a pro did in one of the recent things that became a meme. I would just like clip it, I'd post it, and then I'd put it to Reddit and be like, hey, look what I did.
Reddit is so useful if you're trying to do something. Some of those got like
3,000 or 4,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not subscribers, 3,000 or 4,000 views. So.
Oh yeah, and that's huge. Dude, Reddit is so useful. If you guys are making content as well, or if you're starting your own business or anything like that, Reddit.
One of my big concerns is I don't want to be that guy that's self-promoting exclusively.
You find the pages that let you, but also like you don't do it in a way
that's purely self-promotion. It's got to be like a value add to that community.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure, because I'm not on Reddit that much anymore. I'm not sure how to position like this podcast, for example, as a value add to a particular community. And I also don't want to like get banned from a page for self-promotion.
Well, you could also turn it into like a clip from this video of our little chat about NFTs earlier, and then you could post that to some forum online dedicated to NFTs.
I know I sort of like wrapped up and then didn't wrap up.
Fake wrap up.
Yeah, fake wrap up. So today we're recording in a real studio.
I know. This is sweet, guys. This is looking real nice.
So what is inspiring about this, and I would love to have the managers on one of these episodes sometime, is it's essentially a nonprofit that is running this studio. It's a community television place. And so they have access to all this equipment that we're using. Because it's through a nonprofit, they don't make a ton of money. So it's like $50 a month to have access to this. And I seriously recommend anybody out there who's trying to start anything, look for the nonprofit startup incubator, startup whatever.
You can literally like
in your local
if you
town.
don't have the money, you can if you can drive and you have a car, literally sign up for DoorDash and do like 5 hours. You'll have the money for an entire month to do this. So yeah, that's a super cool opportunity that they provide the local community.
Yeah, just this whole idea that, we probably have access to a $10,000 setup here.
This mic alone probably costs more than the entire subscription to use this place for a month. Yeah. With all the lighting equipment and everything. Like, this is an insane setup for such an understandable price.
That's my biggest tip, is anyone trying to start anything, find yourself a nonprofit that's doing stuff like this.
Be smart. Work smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Bill Gates, I think, said, always hire a lazy man because he'll get the job done better.
Abe Lincoln said, don't trust anybody on the internet.
I don't think that's true. Don't trust anyone on the internet.
Well, this video's on the
Lincoln,
internet, so don't trust me.
So give us a sneak peek. What are 5 financial tips that anyone can apply right now?
Oh, on the spot?
On the spot. Mr. Money Magic.
Okay, Money Magic. Let's do it. These may sound boring, actually, but they are the most useful. Number 1, spend less than you earn. And if you're in a situation where you have to spend more than you earn, don't spend any of that on unnecessary luxuries. 2, think in the long term, not the short term. Don't get caught up in hype. Don't get caught up in frantic things because, like we talked about earlier, if you see an advertisement for a get-rich-quick scheme, you're probably not going to get rich that way.
That's something, it's like investing in yourself. Think long term. It might cost $10,000 for this program that will double your earning capacity. Do it. Maybe even go into debt for it, because whenever you're building something productive, be willing to borrow.
Right. Only if you're responsible, though.
Of course, yeah. Well, if you're investing to make money, it's not a bad thing to borrow as long as you have a high level of confidence and you're not getting ripped off by the lender.
Right.
Sorry, that's my number 3 tip.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'll take that as number 3. Number 4, don't invest what you can't afford to lose. People should hear that more, even though it sounds cliche. People really should hear that more when it comes to crypto, NFTs, stocks. Don't invest what you can't lose, because I've seen so many stories on Reddit of people just losing their entire life savings on one gamble, on one stock. So don't be stupid with your money. Know that you've worked hard for what you have. Don't take it lightly. And then number 5, I would have to say that money isn't everything. Don't get over obsessed with the idea that I need to have a certain amount of money in my bank account. You see some Instagram influencer and you want that diamond ring, you want the Bugatti, you want the Louis Vuitton, you want all these fancy things. The Louis Vuitton. You want all these fancy things, but you shouldn't focus on that because the grass is always greener. There's plenty of miserable celebrities and miserable billionaires out there. And it's not all about money, because what's the point of having all the money in the world if you're not going to be happy while you have it? Focus on balance. Focus on your life. Focus on what makes you passionate and what makes you excited to wake up every day. So that would be my final and most important tip.
Yeah, and this is not financial advice.
This is not financial. But that is personal advice from me, yours truly, Brady Wade.
I thought of this question earlier. There's this interviewer that I really like. His name is David Rubenstein. He's like a hedge fund manager guy. He interviews world leaders, business owners, whatever.
Okay.
He always asks, hey, you've been so successful. Where are your failures? Show us that everybody has some flaws. I wanted to ask you, what is your most valuable mistake?
My most valuable mistake? It's probably related to my most recent video, which was my mistake in entering the car market to buy a new car. And I got caught up in hype. Like I said, I think it was tip 2, like don't get caught up in hype and short-term, luxuries and things like that. I got caught up and really prideful and said, look, I deserve something great for myself. I'm 21. I deserve something amazing.
I've earned it.
I've earned it from all the late night shifts, and I wanted a sports car coupe that could do 350 horsepower, tinted windows, flashy lights, and I almost threw a lot of my money away. A big majority of it. I'm so happy and fortunate that did not happen. Otherwise, I'd be in a pretty interesting situation. But going through that process and that stress and feeling that hype and understanding what I felt in those moments helps me understand for the future. Maybe when I enter the housing market one day and I want to buy my first property, I don't get caught up in hype. I use the rational side of my brain more when I'm making these impactful decisions. And I saved a lot of money from not making that impulsive sports car decision. I guarantee I would have been pretty regretful. But now I'm happy I have a practical, good-looking, classy car that can last me for a really long time. And because I made a practical decision in the end.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brady Wade, Mr. Money Magic.
Thank you.
If you like this episode, please consider subscribing, liking, commenting, whatever you can do to help. It means a lot. Check out Brady's channel, Money Magic. I will link it on all the platforms that this is available on.
Just check the description. You can find a bunch of stuff, but definitely give this video a like.
Also, if you're looking for more of our conversations, we should be recording another episode for the Money Magic podcast sometime in the near future.
Sometime in the future, we'll have Duncan on, so you can check another conversation out over there.
Right on. With that, thank you for tuning in to the Saorsa Podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, and let us know what you want to hear in the future. Thank you.
All that stuff. Bye.